Hello, Shelley. Thank you for joining me. And as you know, we have been friends and colleagues now for 10 years.
It's our 10-year anniversary.
It is our 10-year anniversary. It's been a good 10-year period of seeing each other in different iterations, from advisors to colleagues to business owners, in all the different capacity. And it's been a very emotional and an enjoyable journey with you so far. And I think, this is why I thought this will be a best opening, because I truly respect your opinion about markets and the economic cycle, and I believe you are one of the best people out there to talk about markets and economic cycle. And there's no other better person, I think, that, in order to open the series as such. So thank you for joining me over here today.
Oh, thanks for your kind words. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. And 2026, and everyone thought 2020 was a turning point of the world. We went into lockdown, and before that, everyone thought, 2008, this is a catastrophic GFC event. This could be the end of the world. But here we are, 2026, 19 days in. We've got a geopolitical crisis that is brewing and probably will likely get a lot worse. We've got an economic uncertainty. We've got an ongoing tariff war. There's a dislocation in different parts of the world. Where do you think, or how is the market reading all these things globally?
You're right. It's been a wild start to markets. Usually each year I feel like I have a strong view about what's going on, but I have to say this year I really don't have much of a strong perspective. I think, markets at this point have, keep on charging forward. There's been a lot going on and nothing seems to be stopping them at this point. There's a lot of momentum going on. Historically it's true that geopolitics haven't really impacted markets, and markets don't seem to care that much, but you have to think at some point that may come into it. And we've both chatted about this in the office. There's lots, a lot of the big market commentators are all saying markets are going up, no need to worry, and that's certainly true at this point. And maybe we get another good year. We've had 2 good years so far, like really strong returns. Maybe we're just going to cap off another year.
Yeah.
Because markets just seem to be looking through everything, and as much as it shocks me and surprises me in a way, I do kind of think we're probably going to need a binary outcome. Okay. Either markets will be really good, or something very strange happens, which is unusual. I wouldn't really worry about it too often, but at this point, anything's possible. So, how do you feel?
I actually feel in that point where markets will continue rising for a bit before they realize that there's a bigger picture behind it that needs to be discussed about the economic cycle and where we are at geopolitically. The other bit that I thought was interesting is looking at a couple of stats around retail inflows into ETFs around the world, and the rise of ETF have kind of fueled a bit of a market push as well, to a certain degree. And I feel this is that's also fueling the market yet, is the rise of ETFs, the rise of these managed solutions, and most investors, so retail investors, which are the larger pool of investors around the world, are just putting their money in because where else do we put it?
True.
So there's a bit of a sense of this is an option, let's just ride the wave, and the whole classic story of no matter what happens, things revert to its mean and will continue going up. And how do you see the change in clients' risk tolerance levels in the past year, given the world that we are in?
Most of my clients, I've got what I love, and I'm sure you're saying, you love clients because they come in all different varieties.
Yes.
And you can have younger people who have not so much of a risk tolerance, and you can have older people who have a massive risk tolerance, and and everything in between. And so my clients haven't been changing their risk tolerance, but we've been assessing more, we've been doing some modelling around because I think there's going to be a binary outcome. So markets are either going to do really, really well, or potentially could do really, really poorly. And so therefore, and to me, markets do really well, that's not a risk. That's not a risk on anybody. Everyone is great. When markets are doing well, we're all happy. Yes. Everyone's happy, clients happy, planners happy, we're all happy. But when you're facing a situation where, a market falls 20%, 40%, I've been doing some modelling for a lot of my clients. One of the things that I've been doing is, this is a risk. Yes. What would your situation look like, and how long would it take you to get back to the level of wealth that you would like to have? I feel like that just kind of means you've had the discussion, and it means that you've explored that issue with the client, and then you're really sure that the client's really comfortable and that they've got that knowledge. Yes. Hopefully that will help them if a correction happens, which at some point you've got to. It's bound to happen. It's bound to happen. Even a 20% correction is kind of that's kind of, to me, and I'm sure you're the same, kind of normal, right? It's just part of the market gyration, but people can often panic, right? You want to make sure that you're comfortable with where you're at,
Yep.
And so my clients aren't changing their risk tolerance as such. But I think because I feel like the risks are increasing, I feel like with most of them, I'm just having that extra discussion about, okay, if you had this kind of, and we're doing basically, essentially, we're doing 20%, we're doing a 40% fall, just to have a quick look and say, okay, this is what it could look like. If it happens now, if it happens in 5 years, what impact does that have on, what you're trying to achieve? Just to make sure that they're okay. And as long as they're okay, we're good to go. But I'm not really seeing them change. The problem with risk tolerance is they tend to change it when markets are falling.
Yes.
And they change it up when the markets are rising and down when the markets are falling, because it's humans.
Yeah, it's a behavioral economics behind it.
It's human nature, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
End of the day, we're all humans.
Yeah, and that is such a fascinating concept around the whole advice industry as well, because that's exactly what I do most of the time with the clients, is to sit down and do up the strategy piece first.
Yeah, correct. Sure.
How do we allocate the resources that we have? And we need to factor in, there is going to be a pullback in the market, but let's do a 20% pullback, a 40% pullback. Do we do the pullback now, or do we time it just before they need the cash?
Yeah.
Do we factor in sequencing risk? But showing them all of the options over there. And I do find that tend to change their level of discussion around risk tolerance quite quickly.
Yeah, because risk, it has to be a discussion.
It has to be.
I don't think it should be just, you tick you tick your 10 questions and it pops out a number and, oh, you're this person and this is where you sit on a bell curve, because it's not true of people, right?
Correct. One of the things my clients always like to pick on is, everyone knows I love to say this at the end of the strategy piece, I need to make sure I'm going to stress test your scenarios till I break the budget, and I need to make sure that we can come back from that.
Yeah.
And if we can't come back from that, then we have a problem and we need to figure out how to solve the problem.
Correct.
Granted, that's the worst case scenario, but we need to be ready with the worst case scenario of what needs to be done. And that's where the asset allocation piece is important. Because if everything is sitting in an illiquid asset, or if everything is sitting in an investment property portfolio, how do we get out of it quickly or quick enough to fund the deficit that we're going to be facing? With that in mind, have you been seeing any trend around asset allocation? Have you seen any clients who've got a specific niche or the specific liking for a certain asset class in the past 6 to 12 months, given what's happening in the world, or are we shying away from certain asset classes?
The truth of everyone is that you tend to go with what you know. So, I'm sure you've had the same thing as me. Client comes in for the first client meeting, they say, oh, have you ever seen a portfolio that's got a lot of Australian property? Like direct property, you know, apartments, houses, industrial buildings. You're like, even this week. It's true. Australians have a love affair of property. You often get, and then also you often get portfolios. I'm sure you've got the same too. We've worked together on a couple of portfolios where they're dominated by large stocks, massive holdings of stocks.
Yep. Correct.
Specific stocks. Why is that your number one stock? Is that the right? Where's the catalyst? What's really driving them? Apart from the fact that, because also everyone loves anchoring. They all love to hook themselves to the thing that they've done really, really well out of, and they tend to think because it's done well in the past, it's going to continue to do well.
Yes.
When maybe that's not the right answer, and something, especially with the shares in particular, the things may have changed. So you've got to really start to. You've always got a portfolio. Make sure it's designed correctly, but also make sure that you really understand, why do I have this? Why do I have that? Why is that my number one pick? I always make sure the 1, 2, and 3 are the best stories that you have. The best. You want to allocate capital to them because these are the reasons why.
That's
and you feel passionate about it.
You got to trust that story that the manager or the company is going to deliver.
Correct.
And to trust the process behind it as well. And that's totally fascinating around it, because a lot of clients tend to ignore that.
Yes. Concentration
and just
risk.
Follow what everyone else is saying, or follow the
Correct.
herd essentially. Because all you got to do, all the investor got to do generally is log into their social media accounts, and they get all sorts of different information being shown to them of being, oh, this is the right way to do this is the right investment to go in, this is the right asset class to consider. And there's a lot of noise around it.
Yes.
In this sense as well, when you are reviewing fund manager reports, for example, how do you get through the noise around it? One thing that I've noted is every report that you get is going to say how amazing it is, how amazing the fund is, how amazing this particular stock is. How do we get past this noise of going, this all can't be right?
I think it's really hard, right? Especially in the high net worth space, where if you're a family office or you're a high net worth individual, you have people constantly suited and booted, looking handsome or good looking females, rolling rolling up with their beautiful presentations, their PowerPoints. They've selected the facts that they want to tell you, right? And no one, I mean, one of my favourite sayings is no one has a bad from inception figure. You know,
Yes.
no one.
No one,
But
that's
no
true
one also
actually.
tells you it's very easy to manipulate small amounts of money when you first start,
Yep.
and that you can get a really good number. Just if you can you grow 50% in the first bit, then after that you just cruise off the back of that.
Correct.
I mean, we've both been to presentations in the past where we've had a good giggle to ourselves. Where remember performance not mentioned at all. Like
Yeah, I can
you've
think of a
got
few.
to. I think it's experience that helps us cut through the noise, right?
Correct. Yeah, true. Yeah, that is very, very true. You see that all the time.
And you've seen enough to know. You
Correct.
know how an investment operates. You know what you're looking for. You know that fees are really important, right?
It is.
Sometimes it's very hard to figure out what's the fees you're paying on some
Yeah,
of these things.
I think that is one of my rules around it. If the fee structure is too complex,
Yes.
it's going to be a lot more complex down the track, and when you start digging through it, so you got to
Correct.
be very sure on that structure. For an underperforming fund or an asset, when do you pull the trigger and go, right, this is it, I'm going to sell it out of it? Is it 1 quarter? Do you give them 2 quarters? Or
Depends on what it is.
yep.
I think, honestly, I had a client meeting the other day with a client who's very sophisticated, and she is amazing in that she understands investment very, very well. But she was going through her portfolio and she was picking on a few things, and we were joking between. I'm like, that's a bit harsh. You know, some things she was picking on, she'd only owned them for a month.
Yeah.
Well, we can't judge something over a month. That's a bit mean. But also, you can't compare a fixed interest to
That's right.
tech stock or whatever.
Yes.
Like, you've really got to make sure you're comparing your apples and apples, but understand where you are in the cycle.
Correct.
Understanding all the different things that have been happening in markets. You can't just, I mean, a lot of people do it sort of trend following, but you've really got to focus on what's gone wrong. Why is it behaving the way it is? Do the reasons that they're telling you make sense? Because sometimes they tell you reasons that you're like,
Yes.
I don't know about that.
Correct.
You know, does it actually make sense in a broader context? How are their competitors, similar investments or similar funds going? What have been the issues? Do they seem like they can be fixed? And I think especially for fund managers, you've got to really give them enough time. If you're true to your style, there's going to be
Yes.
time. Underperformance is part of the job. It's
Yeah,
just the way
totally.
it goes.
Correct. Absolutely.
What about you? What do you look for in?
Fee structure is the first thing that I look for in a lot of the fund management reports or fund manager presentation. If it's too complex, it's going to be a nightmare to deal with. I generally tend to go, right, this is probably not a right fit
Yes.
in that situation. Performance figures.
Also, what are they hiding?
Correct. And performance figures, as you mentioned, I really have to sit down and dial down and read through it properly
Yes.
and look at what benchmark are we comparing against as
Oh,
well.
100%.
The selection of benchmark is very important because that's where managers tend to go, right, this is our outperformance or underperformance.
Yes.
But I really want to see what benchmark are we talking about over
Correct.
here. The other bit that I'm always interested is the investment philosophy of the manager. How true are you to your own specific investment philosophy? And that's looking through their data sets of how many trades have we done and why have you done this amount of trades. So is it the positioning of, or markets have outperformed, underperformed, so we've moved all these larger holdings quite quickly? Why did you do that? Is that not against our investment philosophy, or have we changed our investment philosophy halfway through?
Yes.
And just being open and transparent about it, because I think at the end of the day, it's the advisor who is facing the clients. It's the advisor who's having to educate the investor. And if we don't get the full information behind it, how are we meant to pass that on to the client and help them make the educated decision around their own money and their own portfolio as well? Now, I've got a few questions. It's a bit of a rapid fire style.
Okay.
I'm
I'm
just
up
going
for
to
it.
throw some questions and make a pick, just a yes or a no. And or which ones would you pick, one or the other? Between top 100 ASX, NASDAQ 100
For 2026?
for 2026.
NASDAQ.
NASDAQ. Developed markets, emerging markets.
Developed markets for sure.
Ah, great.
Too much risk in emerging markets. Sorry.
Tariff for China or US, which is going to outperform or outshine?
That is a harder question. I find China a hard investment just because it can change quite rapidly. So I'll probably pick the US, and probably Trump will stack the cards his direction anyway.
US or the EU, Europe, given that
I would
Greenland is
l-
coming into the equation now?
I think the US is 70% of markets. It's hard to bet against, as wild as they're being in the world right now. So I don't know. I think maybe the US,
Yeah.
but hopefully the Europeans really get on board.
And interest rates up or down
In Australia.
in Australia and also ex-Australia around there?
I think that in Australia, I think probably interest rates have stopped going down now. I think maybe potentially going up.
Mhm.
Not a lot.
Mhm.
I don't think they can afford to put them up a lot. But globally, look, bond markets can be vicious, and I think that's probably going to be the biggest risk that Trump
Yeah.
possibly runs. I think he thinks at this point he might. I probably shouldn't say all this, but he's got a big military, but he doesn't have control of his bond market. And if the rest of the world want to punish him, they can. And I don't think
If he realizes that.
he may have forgotten for now.
Correct. Public markets or private markets?
I think public markets. I like liquidity, especially when risks are running high. I think that private assets, there's some risk there, especially it needs to be tightly controlled.
Okay.
They're good assets. I'm not saying they're not,
Yeah.
but I think that you need some thought.
Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Karam.